Hi, Daily Dosers. My name is Kip Strawbridge, and I'm the campus pastor over at our Carlsbad campus. And the other day when my wife and I were having a conversation, she and I were disagreeing about something, and she had made a mistake. And I looked at her and I said, honey, you need to embrace your mistakes. And she looked at me, turned her head kind of sideways, and then she reached out and gave me a big hug. And I looked at her and I said, that's not what I meant. Now, that's just a joke. That experience actually didn't happen. So that story wasn't true. But the reason that I tell it is because we're in a series called 10, where we look at the 10 commandments. And today we're looking at number 9. That is most famously known as thou shalt not bear false witness against your neighbor, or more commonly, thou shalt not lie, or do not lie. And the reason I share that joke is because St. Augustine, about 400 years after Christ, wrote about lying, because he had some thoughts on it. And he wanted to really break down and do something more than just give the command, do not lie, but understand why. And as he breaks it down, he begins using the example of a joke, that the joke in itself isn't true, but it's meant to frame a story to get a response, to get to the punchline. And the intent of it is not to deceive. And so when it gets down to lying, he gets to a point really through, as he goes through about 43 points on this topic, which is a great read. I encourage you to look up St. Augustine's commentary on lying. It'll give you some deeper insights into what this means than I can do in a short daily dose. But as he talks about this, he uses joke as that example to say that there are two other factors involved. And one is the consequences of not telling the truth and the motivations of the person speaking. But it gets to something even deeper than that, because even though he was talking about motivations and consequences, it really deals with more the social impact and how we interact with each other. But what I wanted to share with us today is that why in the original 10 laws given to the Israelites by God himself, why is do not lie one of them? Like, we can understand do not murder. We can understand don't commit adultery, but why not lying? Why is it so important that it has to be one of the first 10? And I think it's because of a deeper truth, and that is what we find throughout the Old Testament is that God is referred to as the God of truth. And so lying really goes in direct opposition to even the very essential character of who God is. And then as you get into the New Testament, in John chapter 14:6, he says that Jesus says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. It's the very character of who God is. And by Jesus' own proclamation, the way in which we reach God, this God of truth, is through the truth, that being Jesus. And so therefore we, to reflect the Imago Dei, the image of God as image bearers of him, that we are to be truthful people. There's an old... as you go back into ancient times when they would sell those statues and things like this, oftentimes as you're working with marble, it had imperfections, cracks, things like that in it. And those people selling them would often hide or fill in these cracks or chips and then polish them over with wax to make them look as though they were whole, because integrity is something that we value. It's innate in the way that we interact with each other, is that when something is whole, it seems to have a more value than something that's broken or chipped. And so when people would sell these statues that had no chips, that had no imperfections, they would be without wax. And that's where we get the word sincere. Sin meaning without, ceros meaning wax. And so they would say, this is sincere, it has no wax in it. And so my challenge to you today is that not only because of the consequences socially, the motivations and the consequences of what lying does to our integrity or to the integrity of truth itself, but even the deeper meaning that God himself is truth and that the way to God is through Jesus, who is the way, the truth, and the life, that we as believers especially should uphold truth as one of the highest causes in our life. So if that's something that you struggle with, whether it's half-truths, whole truths, or withholding the truth, that I challenge you today to be sincere, to be without wax, to be a person of integrity that isn't masking something as something that it isn't, but that we hold to the truth because we are the bearers of Christ's image, who is the truth. So don't lie. Have a good day, Daily Dosers.